This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining me on Stockbox today is Christian Taylor-Wilkinson, the CEO of Altona Rare Earths. Hi, Christian. How are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to be talking to you. It's the first time that we're speaking, and you are a rare earths company of which there aren't that many, I don't believe, listed on the stock exchange. So I wonder, before we get into the news that you've announced today, could you perhaps start by giving us a high-level overview of the company and what you're all about?
Yeah, of course. So Altona Rare Earths has been listed in the UK stock markets since about 2004, and it used to be called Altona Energy, when the focus of the business was coal exploration in Australia. I joined the board in January 2019, and the first thing that I started looking at was whether this was the right strategy for the company. Decided it wasn't. Relinquished the assets that we had in Australia, and then we spent the last probably the 6-month period up until sort of summer last year trying to find what would be a suitable alternative mining strategy for the company. And whatever investigations we made, rare earth mining seemed to be at the end of it. It just made a lot of sense. There's a huge growing demand around the world at the moment for an enlarged supply of these 17 critical metals that are used in a massive variety of technology industries, from car batteries, electric vehicle batteries, to wind turbines, but also they're used in everyday items like mobile phones, and then various governments of the world use them in a number of military applications like guidance systems for lasers. So the world's, I think about 95% of the world's supply is currently controlled by China because they do most of the production and they have a lot of the larger mines. So what we're finding is a lot of the governments, Europe, US particularly, are looking for alternative sources so they don't have to rely upon China should there be a trade war or should there be a squeeze at the prices. Especially, some of the governments, like Boris Johnson, the end of last year, was saying that every UK household would be powered by electricity from wind generation. Now, that's a massive stretch, and each wind turbine has something like, I think it's something like 24, 25 kilos of rare earth metals contained in their engines at the bottom, because they're in the permanent magnets that drive these things. So this sector can only go in one direction. And as you mentioned, that there's only 4 companies currently listed in London that are trying to mine these metals, and they're all have operations in Africa. And Altona is very early stage. We when we started searching for the right assets, which we now are in negotiations for 3 of them, we reviewed maybe 20 different projects in Africa to find the right ones that would suit the size of the company, and obviously the funds that we have and the resources available to us, but also those that would, I think, from a shareholder point of view, be slightly less risky. So the strategy we're trying to do is focus on shareholder value. So one of the things we are doing is de-risking the investment into Altona by not focusing on one single project. So as I said before, we have 3 projects under negotiation to acquire. And the announcement that we put out this morning, other than the general trading update, which sort of hopefully said that everything's going to plan and we're working fine and we have cash to move into the next phase, was the key RNS this morning was the MOU that we signed in Mozambique to acquire this really exciting project. We've completed due diligence on the project and on the company that we're acquiring far quicker than we thought. And that's mainly due to our legal team in Mozambique, but also the fact that the company that we're looking to buy, they are very willing to work with Altona. They obviously can see the benefit of working with Altona and what we can bring. So we have made the decision and informed the market that we're progressing with this deal. So it's, even though we're sort of in the contract phase now, I wanted to get across to the market that it's not just an MOU that we're thinking about. We have done our thinking and we're moving forward.
Okay. So you said the company there has been around for a little while, and of course you have now announced this morning that MOU that's been signed. So how do you feel about this deal?
I think very good. I'll tell you the reasons for that. We have two other MOUs that we're looking at. And one we actually signed last July, so it's been 9 months. And we're not talking about negotiating. The terms of the deal are fixed, but it's sort of completing this legal process to ensure that what you're buying is what you've been told. So we can't have any upsets down the line. And obviously they were dragging the heels, and shareholders, they get a bit restless when you don't provide what you said you're going to provide. So when we started talking to the owners of Monte Moambe in Mozambique back in January, things seemed to gel very quickly. And the other two projects that we have, just the sort of a quick background here, typically in Africa, rare earths are found in carbonatite deposits, which are hard rock deposits, which you have to drill, and then you have to extract the rock, which then needs to be milled and crushed before you can start leaching out the metals themselves. But the other two projects we have are ionic clay. So what it means is you're going to find lower concentrates of rare earth. So therefore, the sites themselves are less valuable, but access to the metals, to actually process the metals, is quicker because you don't have to break up rock, you're just digging soil. And the leaching process to separate the metals from the soil or the rock is a simpler, cheaper process. So economically, they're sort of both they're at different ends of the situation. But what we insisted we had was, whilst it would be great to have an ionic clay project like the one we're trying to conclude in Malawi, we also wanted a bigger project that would contain greater amounts of rare earths. The ore bodies would be richer, but would take us longer to get to production. So instead of, let's say, ballpark figures, £5 million in 2 years, this might cost £20 million and 10 years to get to. But I think having both assets in our portfolio is great for shareholders. So we can get some project quicker to revenue, but other projects, we may have 20 years life on this mine. And this is the project I'm talking about in Mozambique, the Monte Moambe project. It's been owned by, or it's been explored by another company about 10 years ago, an Australian listed company. They weren't looking for rare earths, they were looking for fluorite. And whilst they were exploring and drilling holes and analyzing what they were drilling, they found lots of really strong evidence of high-grade rare earth elements there. So this has given us the excitement to snatch up this deal, which we're doing as fast as we can, safely, but at the same time to get teams over there, hopefully by the summertime, and start exploring and investigating more of what's already been found. So our geologists believe about 5% of the surface area has been explored to date. And it's like a volcanic crater. So it looks like a crater. It's actually not a volcanic crater. It just looks like one from the air. So we have 90-95% of this surface to continue. And the results so far. So just very briefly on the detail, 3 significant intercepts have been reported by the last company that are looking at it. And we're looking at above average total rare earth oxide, which is the way you measure it. It's TREO, TREO. And we're looking not particularly deep, sort of 30 to 50 meters below the surface. We're looking at over 2.5% TREO, which, as I said, is above average for a carbonatite project. So who knows what we might find, but if this is an average standard of what's going to be there, then I think this is going to be quite a significant project.
Okay. Well, I'm sure shareholders will be pleased to know that you have got into this deal. Now, of course, you're in the due diligence period. What can we look forward to? What can shareholders or investors look forward to in the short term? I mean, do you know when due diligence may be completed, or what's coming up?
Yeah, so the legal due diligence is done, which is us checking that the company who owns the license exists and is safe, legitimate. And then also we were checking that the license itself, the exploration license, the main thing we're acquiring, is in fact assigned to who we've been told it's assigned to. So that's a simple process. We're also doing some technical due diligence. We've taken some samples from the site, which have been sent to our lab in Australia. We have a metallurgist called Gavin Beer. He's based in Australia. So he'll be running the analysis on these core samples over the next few weeks to give us a sort of a better indication of what we're going to be entering into. But we have 90 days from when we signed the MOU on the 24th of March to complete the due diligence, to sign the final contract. I hope we'll be concluding at some point early June rather than the end of June. And I think it'd be nice to be able to get out to the site, visit it, and start putting some plans together and formulating the exploration work. And that'll sort of probably coincide roughly with the time that we're approaching our proposed stock market listing on the London Stock Exchange, because as you know, currently we're on the Aquis Stock Exchange.
Okay. And a final question then, aside from this new deal you've got in Mozambique, is this going to be your sole focus now, or are there other perhaps potential things going on as well?
No, not at all. This is great to get news out, great to reward shareholders with news, but at the end of March, we also signed an option agreement to acquire 51% of an ionic clay rare earth project in Uganda. The difference with that project is it's a greenfield site. The only sort of lead that we have that there may be rare earths of any quantity there, it sits next door to an Australian listed ionic clay mining company who's been showing fantastic results. So our tenement literally sort of sits along the southern edge of their tenement. There's no proof that the ore body is going to run into our tenement, but we don't know. It's a speculative prospecting game mining, and I think it's worthwhile taking this risk to move it forward to see what we can find. And then briefly, I mentioned before that the deal we had in Malawi, the Chambe project, which is the first deal we signed back in July last year. This company is, or the current owner is just waiting for the license to be approved. It's been granted by the government pending approval. Now all the documents that they needed to put in, all the plans for exploration, for the environmentals, for the local communities, everything's been submitted and approved. There's a backlog of exploration licenses waiting to be approved in Malawi, and we're just in that queue. So everything's been done with these guys. We are simply waiting for the license to be granted, and then we can move forward into our joint venture agreement with them. So look, let's say the end of second quarter 2021, I would hope that we have 3 solid rare earth mining projects under the ownership of Altona Rare Earths. I think that's the plan.
Okay, well, Christian Taylor Wilkinson there, the CEO of Altona Rare Earths, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Mark. Good to talk.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.